America's having the gun debate again. This is the debate over who gets access to guns and what type of guns. But there are forces who do not want to allow a gun debate. And so they're trying, yet again, to switch this to a debate about the Constitution, about our founders, about the Second Amendment. This is a pivot. It's a trick. It is, as one former Supreme Court justice put it, a fraud.
This has been the subject of one of the greatest pieces of fraud, I repeat the word fraud, on the American public by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime.
That's former Chief Justice Warren Burger, a Republican appointee, famously noting how those groups have defrauded the public's understanding of the Second Amendment. Here's why. The Second Amendment does not apply to AR-15s. It does not apply to assault-style weapons. It never has. Congress may legally ban those weapons without touching the Second Amendment. That's a legal fact. But it's hard for many politicians to defend AR-15s. It's hard to explain why, as a policy trade-off, it's more important to make it easy to buy AR-15s and to restrict their use as weapons of mass murder. So politicians talk more about the Second Amendment than these weapons.
I'm a staunch believer in the Second Amendment. I don't think those rights should be infringed, but how do we keep our children and teachers safe in schools?
So they immediately start calling that we've got to take away the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. That's not the right answer.
I am not trying to caricature anyone's position. There are many legitimate reasons to support gun ownership and debate how to regulate guns. You know, I grew up in a house with guns. I get why people use guns and need guns and love guns. So let's have that honest debate about guns and the price we want to pay for using them. Let's not do another fraudulent debate pretending the Second Amendment prevents us from regulating weapons of war. Now, I tried raising this with Texas Republican Congressman Michael Burgess on the show just last week, but instead of talking about guns, about AR-15s, he kept returning to the Second Amendment. For people who are wondering at home why you have made it easier for people to get AR-15s is why?
Well, there is a Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, and if that discussion then is to a particular type of weapon, you know, so be it. But right now, I don't think that issue is demonstrably proven. If that's so, that needs to be a national conversation, and likely that will involve legislation, and likely will involve the courts, might even involve a constitutional amendment. But we're far away from that point right now.
The congressman has every right to explain his defense of AR-15s. Apparently, he didn't really want to. He kept going back to the Second Amendment. So let's talk for a minute about the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court has never ruled the Second Amendment protects AR-15s or any individual right to weapons of war. And it's not like the NRA crowd has not tried. The Supreme Court has repeatedly rejected, even hearing cases, trying to get Second Amendment protections for those kind of guns. In fact, it did so 3 times in the past 3 years. Take just one of those cases. An appeals court ruled barring semi-automatic assault weapons and large-capacity magazines is constitutional and does not violate the Second Amendment. That is the law. The Supreme Court has ruled what I just read to you remains the law right now. Or take the key case where the Supreme Court did rule for an individual right to handguns, Justice Scalia's famous 2008 opinion. Even there, the court notes the Second Amendment does not apply to just any weapon whatsoever. And there's the key words, it's not unlimited. That's Justice Scalia talking. Even in the midst of his ruling for handguns, he was clear that other guns can still be banned.
It will have to be decided in future cases what limitations upon the right to keep and bear arms are permissible. Some undoubtedly are.
So here is your Second Amendment scorecard. The Second Amendment does protect handguns under the Supreme Court precedent. It does not protect these AR-15s. Every serious expert on the law and the Second Amendment already knows that. Pro-gun legal advocates, they know it too. And we know they know, because they are the ones who have been trying to file all those cases to get the courts to broaden the Second Amendment to protect our AR-15s, which, as I just showed you, the courts have declined. The Supreme Court won't even hear those cases. Those are the facts. So as this debate goes on, if someone tells you we have to live with these weapons because of the Second Amendment, either they don't know what they're talking about or they think you don't.